Hey everybody! Welcome to Let's Look at This Is the Police. This came out earlier in August, but it was a game that I was interested in checking out and finally got a chance to. Michael Alphonse, friend of the channel and friend of mine in real life as well, if we're going to make that distinction, tipped me off to this like 2 years ago when it was on Kickstarter, maybe 18 months ago when it was on Kickstarter, and indeed this was kickstarted to the relatively modest tune of about 35,000 American dollars, which for, in a world where we have some crowdfunded games that have crossed the 1 million mark, I think is relatively low as far as, development costs and aspirations go. But it's $15 US, $18 Canadian. I paid for this with my own hard-earned Canadian dollars, then converted through digital currencies to American dollars via the Steam store. But in any case, what is This Is the Police? It's a half-narrative adventure game, almost in the same style. I wouldn't say necessarily as a Telltale game, but you can kind of use that as a reasonable approximation. There's a lot of cutscenes, and then there's sometimes choices that are going to affect your gameplay based on those cutscenes that you'll get to choose for yourself. Almost like a choose-your-own-adventure style. And then also a strategy layer where you are playing as a police chief and basically dealing with encounters, managing your officers, their well-being and morale, as well as, basically giving them experience points and leveling them up to solve crimes. And there's a micro layer of that, of like, hey, someone's vandalizing something, catch them so you get experience points, and a macro layer of you only have 6 months left on the job before retirement. How do you want to do things? Do you want to take, jobs from the mob to make a lot of money for yourself and maybe make your life easier? Or do you want to play it strictly by the book and go out on your own terms, etc., etc.? I've played about an hour so far. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get going here. I'm going to load into my existing save. The campaign is 180 days long. I'm on day 7, and it's taken me about an hour to get there. Now, I'm not going to say that this is going to be a 25-hour-long experience, but it is possible, and I think in many ways that actually works against the game, but we'll load in here either way. Get ready, we're going to start with the cutscene. The main character is, well, us, and it's also voiced by John St. John, who you may know as the voice of Duke Nukem. And one of the things that is appealing about the game is that it does really try to tell a story. And there is player agency in the story, like you can alter things somewhat, but they are telling a narrative here, if that makes sense. It's not just a sandbox game or a simulation sandbox where you get emergent gameplay, although maybe there is some of that. It really, for better or for worse, does try to tell you a story, and there is almost like a laborious amount of cutscenes. Like 2/3 of the gameplay so far has been watching John St. John, tell me about how his wife left him, and, the mayor is working with the mob and he's trying to push him out. But I'll let him talk for now. By the way, mature themes.
The people of Freeburg have built up a tolerance for the petty horrors of modern life. You'll never see crowds gathering around a beaten passerby. Folks rarely even slow to gawk at a car accident. And street theft doesn't turn heads anymore. Been a long time since people got worked up about stuff like that. So when I ran into a troubled crowd on the way to work, I knew there was something serious going on. Something bad enough to knock these people out of their daily rhythm. And we're talking about people who would step over a corpse if it was blocking the door to the coffee shop. But apparently all it takes is a bunch of leaflets, or spreading broken glass across Main Street, or releasing a couple of hundred rats in the ice arena. The mysterious figure taking responsibility for these strange acts goes by the alias Robespierre. Nobody knows who he is, what he wants, or what all this adds up to, from the buckets of lard spread on the sidewalk to the front door of City Hall covered with ostrich feathers. But this strange cross between childhood pranks and cheap theatrics has got the people all worked up. Everyone understands when some Freeburg crook satisfies the basic human need to rob and kill. But when someone steals a lion from the local zoo and locks him in a cell below the courthouse, the people start asking questions. Myself, I kinda like this Robespierre. It's not just the pranks he's pulling or his green bull's head emblem. I just like his funny nickname. Robespierre? Really? Who does that make me? The Marquis de Lantenac? I don't think so. In the old books about revolutions, I fancy myself the old gunner who goes off to war with a bag of damp powder. Or maybe the innkeeper who tops up the beer kegs with...
So, I mean, we could watch this whole thing,
It's something to think about.
This might be the end of the cutscene. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but we might have a little bit more coming. I'm 50-50 on it. Let's see if this is a masquerading loading screen. Okay, we have a new deputy. And one of our workers didn't come into work today. My neighbor died and his wife asked me to help with the funeral arrangements. Can I take the day off? You know what? That seems reasonable to me. All right. So I would, just to do like a little post-mortem on that cutscene, that was actually one of the shorter ones that I've seen so far. I would go so far as to say that your enjoyment of This Is the Police probably boils down to how you felt about that cutscene. If you watch that and you're like, oh, John St. John, hamming it up, playing like a tired police chief who's only got 6 months left to go until retirement. If you're into that, you have a greater chance to be into the game. I actually really like the game mechanically, but I'm a little sick of the cutscenes. Again, 180 days, and every single one that I've had so far, maybe it's just because it's the first week. You know, Papers, Please did that a lot too. At the start of the game, there was a lot of narrative stuff, and you're like, hey, come on, just let me get to denying people to cross the border, right? Maybe it gets a little bit, flash forwardy at some point, but for now, I'm like, I can't imagine watching 180 of those cutscenes. It's not that it's bad, it's just at some point you're like, you can't get into that flow state of like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Every time you get into the groove, you're being taken out to be told a little bit more of the story. And I kind of feel like, given that there's supposed to be player agency and making choices that affect the actual narrative of the game, I'd rather they told me less of that story and let me kind of create that story for myself. But anyway, this is the second layer of the game. This is the police management layer of the game. You have an A shift and a B shift. They alternate on a day-to-day basis. Let's just go over this real quickly here. With the brown outline, these are our detectives. Detectives do investigations and they solve perhaps more difficult cases, if that makes sense. More cases where a suspect is already gone. So if there's been a homicide, you put your detectives on it, they figure out clues, and you solve the case together, then go to arrest. These are effectively our beat cops. I don't know if that's technically the proper term, but we use these guys whenever we get a call into the police station via 911 that's like, hey, there's been vandalism, or there's an armed robbery, there's a suicide attempt, etc., etc. Name at the top. Tiredness is on the right side, so, every time they work a day, they lose one level of tiredness. Then when they sleep, they get one level of tiredness, or one level of energy back, I guess you should say. The stars indicates their prestige, and there's basically like an FTL system with like a dice roll for every encounter. So you might go and there's a fight at a strip club or something like that. If you send an officer with a prestige level, which is the star, of 150, you would expect that most of the time they would succeed in the encounter of breaking that up, arresting whoever needs to be arrested, and nobody getting hurt. So the 150 is like an average officer, and 490 is obviously spectacular here. 65 is really bad, but you can kind of like buff your officers because a successful encounter gives them 10 prestige, and an unsuccessful encounter takes away 10 prestige. So if you send a really good officer and a really bad officer, oftentimes the really good officer will compensate and be able to kind of like pull the bad officer up to the point where they become a little better. Let's start our day here. So this is by far my favorite aspect. Oh, new records can be obtained as a gift or a thank you for your service, but why wait when you can refill your collection now? I have not seen this before, but I guess we can buy our own records using the money that we earn from our job. This is kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm like, why would I ever waste the money that I might need for game mechanics on that? And we'll just put on some royalty-free Frederick Chopin Nocturne in B-flat major here, or whatever it's called. Nocturne in B major, my mistake. All right. So one thing that the game is really strong on, and I mean this sincerely, it might seem like I've been a little bit half negative so far. I don't mean to be. Yeah, we can sort of hear that. Okay, the Mafia offer you some very interesting services. You're practically a member of the family now, so it'll hardly cost you a thing. Don't worry about that for now. But what I will say is, and then don't worry about the whole Mafia thing, okay? It's all getting blown out of proportion. They're actually some nice fellas, but the game oozes style. I really like the visual style. I'm a sucker for these kind of like, digital games with board games mechanics here. And this does have almost like a deck building mechanic with the way you manage your officers and stuff like that. And I think the way that it styles itself as being like, I guess it takes place like 50 years ago, something like that. It's good. It feels like it's in period, which gives it a little bit of a stylistic edge over just being like a, generic modern era police facility or something like that. I think that from an audio-visual standpoint, the game handles itself really well. All right, so this is the... Oh, well, first they're going to tutorialize some Mafia stuff here. So the Sands is basically the Mafia family. The Sands Services. Crime trap. The Mafia will falsify a special crime in progress, and all the officers who arrive at the scene will be killed. This might seem like a negative thing, but actually, the way that the game handles morality, we could want our officers to be killed if we can't fire them legally. Like, you know, you can fire them if they're too old or if they're bad at their job, but if you just want to open up space for more officers, you may actually want them to die. But the gameplay is pretty fast and loose with the morals here, as you might expect. Investigation trap. The Mafia will falsify a special investigation, and the detective who arrives at the scene will be killed. Only one detective, and then threaten, which we can't afford. We can also go to City Hall. Everyone's corrupt. City Hall, we can give requests to get like more officers or more salary for ourselves, or upgrade our SWAT team. But our City Hall also gives us, 1 second here. Our city, well, okay, first, okay, detectives, send your staff for training at the police academy, send employees to an informal outdoor party, or hire a snitch, pay an employee to gather important information for you. That will not be necessary. I have had 0 officers killed, and also 0 officers, or 3 officers fired, but mostly I'm buffing my officers up pretty well here. Crimes solved 16, failed 7, cases solved 2. Let me quickly go here to, I think it's in affairs. Wait a minute. Maybe investigations. Maybe in messages. Hold up. I wanted to talk about the way that City Hall handles things in this game, but I guess we'll get a chance to do that later. All right, let's actually get to the gameplay here. All right, so we get a call. Bigfoot Athletic Shoe Shop. This is like the FTL aspect of the game. A shoe store clerk reports that 2 teenagers found the most expensive sneakers on display, tried them on, and then without paying ran out of the shop wearing the new shoes. So we can send 2 officers out, and the more serious the crime, the more officers we can send. So, a hit and run might have 3, and a carjacking might have 4, and like a violent assault with a deadly weapon might have like 6 or something. And then the support indicates that we can put the SWAT team on this mission, but since it's locked, we cannot. Probably we don't need to send great officers on this. Let's send Van Dahl, who's actually quite good, and then we'll send Grant as well. And my general thinking here is I try to send officers who average 150. So you send 1 good one, 1 bad one, and you hope that the good one will buoy the bad one and then give the bad one more prestige so she will become better in the future. So as soon as you assign officers to a mission, they go out and you have to travel to it. Again, I think this is very stylish the way it looks here. Even if it's not necessarily the most impressive thing from a pure asset standpoint, I think the way that it represents things is quite nice. So they have some travel time associated with that, as you can see, and they're going out there, and in a minute they will arrive. And then we'll get a resolution for the encounter. The teen, okay, sometimes you actually get it even further into like choose your own adventure stuff. The teens are standing around smoking not far from the store, admiring their new shoes. Time to return those shoes, try to grab one of the boys, or hey, mind if I have a cigarette? One of the things that's really weird about this is the police, is that the way it handles tone, and I know some people are immediately going to be like, oh, ludonarrative dissonance, so can you get any further up your own butt? It's a game that deals with very, very serious themes, like people's heads getting cut off, being draped from furniture and stuff like that, but then sometimes, you go to like a police call at a sex shop or something like that, and one of your options is like throw a sex doll at the perpetrator, and you're like, I get it, like you're trying to be funny, but at the same time it almost takes away from the seriousness of the tone when you throw stuff like that in there. This encounter seems fine. These are all, I guess, semi-reasonable, except for trying to grab them, I guess, immediately, but and maybe, hey, mind if I have a cigarette is too far, but you're going deep undercover. But it's not that I'm offended on for my sensibilities or anything like that. It's more like, I don't know whether I should be like chuckling at the game or being like, this is horrible and horrific. And it kind of oscillates back and forth between the two in a way that I think is a little destructive to my enjoyment. So I tend to handle things at least the way that I like to think I would handle them if I was a police officer. Time to return those shoes. And then this is resolution. Offender caught, officers unharmed. Sweet. So my strategy completely worked there. They each gained 10 prestige. We got another encounter here. Attempted murder. A man returned from work earlier than usual and found his young wife in bed with her lover. The maid called the police when she saw the husband taking a hunting rifle from the wall cabinet. All right, this one, we're going to send Stowell. We're going to send Yildirim. We're going to send Samedi. And then we've got how many? What's our surplus in points right now? 30, 40, and then like 300. So you know what? Birch Jr., come out here. I'm going to try to make a man out of you. I tried to fire him, but he wasn't old enough. I already fired his dad. And every once in a while, we will get requests from City Hall or requests from the Mafia to do things. And the more things we do for them, the better... Oh, here you go. Today in Freeburg, we're holding the premiere of Back to the Future. The film's... Oh, I guess it takes place in 85. The film's distributors have asked the city for an officer to stand at the door and ensure that visitors don't bring their handheld cameras into the theater. All right, I'm going to send Robbins. Go for it. So these will grant you favor with City Hall, and they'll make your life easier by allowing you to get, to make requests that are more likely to be approved, like having more officers, for example. Attempted murder report. Offender caught, officers unharmed, civilians unharmed. So everybody gets plus 10. That's good. And in particular, the stuff for the Mafia might also give you money, but it also makes the Mafia happier with you so they don't, kill you in your sleep. But at the same time, I haven't taken any of these yet. My philosophy is let's try to play it by the book. A young father deprived of his parental rights tried to pick up his daughter from school. When he wasn't allowed access, he attacked the teacher, knocked her to the ground, and started kicking her. All right, let's send Vandal and Grants and Hollinger. What I don't know is it better to send 2 officers who might be average between them, or send a 3rd officer who might lower the average so that they're a little bit below where you'd like them to be, but of course it is just an extra body. So that's a level of the management that I'm not totally familiar with yet, but you get the basic premise and the basic loop of this gameplay here. I actually... Oh, what is this? Police station. Mr. Boyd, I have a very sensitive issue which our mutual friend Charles Dilla said you could help me with. As you may already know, I own the largest music store in Freeburg. Recently, my ex-wife got half my record collection in a lawsuit. There's a lot of rare records. My ex is very afraid of the police and always tries to act like a law-abiding citizen. If some of your guys went over there in uniform and told her those records were evidence in an important investigation, she'd just smile and give them whatever they asked for, not even check the warrant. You get questions like this. Ulrich Bieber, great name. He's Canadian. But you get requests like this, and I think the game tries really hard to be like, look, there's no penalty to being immoral and abusing your power here, and you get a reward for it. But at the same time, I just don't feel right about doing it. But there is a level of that, the world is what you make it in This Is the Police. And you could choose to be a little bit more of a crooked cop, or you could choose to be a law-abiding police chief. And I think they're probably going to twist the screws on you there a little bit. We've got a Mafia assignment. Jack, we have something going down today at engineering plant in 22 minutes. We wouldn't want any policemen crashing the party. I think $4,000 should be enough for such a request. You know what? I'm going to crash the party and see what happens here. I know you think you're buddy-buddy with the police, but Stowell, he's got 2 days till retirement, no problems. Okay, let's see how our assault went down. Offender caught, officers unharmed. Good, so our lower officers are going to get a little bit of a prestige buff. Disorderly contact, a guard says that someone got into the exhibition hall, scrawled pictures of penises on the artwork, and then hid in the closet. You know what? Stovall, save yourself on this one. I don't want you to fail this, so I'm going to send out you two, Yildirim and Samadi. But we need to have good officers available for this Mafia thing, and it may have also, meta-narrative impact. For now, though, I'm not helping Ulrich Bieber. That's not official police business. We're already understaffed, dude. I'm not going to go intimidate your wife into giving you your first edition, We're the Beatles. All the lights are on when the police arrive. The museum caretaker explains that he's only had the job a couple weeks. He's worried he's going to be fired over this foolishness. Police calm him down, and he points to the bathroom stall that the artist locked himself inside. Come out with your hands up. A terrified and tearful young man holding a knife insists that he's engaged in some kind of performance art, and no one understands him. He refuses to surrender and is threatening to stab himself. Don't worry, you're not in any trouble. We just want to talk. I mean, he is in trouble, obviously, but let's not try to escalate the situation. Yildirim and Samadi, every time. They're like the Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson of our environment here. Now, I believe at 8 p.m. the day ends. So... Oh, no, maybe it's at 10 p.m. the day ends, which is 22. I would have thought that we would actually have that Mafia assignment by now, but maybe not. Sometimes, it's a sleepy town. There's not a lot of crimes that happen on a necessarily daily basis. But we've managed it pretty well today. And this is the gameplay of the game. Oh, there's one more. Theft at the engineering plant. This is the Mafia thing. Okay, we just received a call from the groundskeeper at a machine factory. Spotted 2 offenders stealing aluminum from a factory through a hole in the wall. Send out, our best officers, and then also Birch Jr. This I like, and I could mainline, 10 days of this in a row without it getting too monotonous. But what really kind of saps the enjoyment out of me when I play this is the fact that You know, you get like this 8 minutes or 10 minutes of police work, which is actually the most fun part of the game, in my opinion. And then you also watch a little Sandsack cutscene where John St. John, you know, competently delivers his lines. But I'm kind of like, I want to make my own story. I don't care about the, I don't care as much, at least, about the story that they're trying to tell. If you're gonna, it's like double dipping. Like, you have the emergent gameplay and the player agency, but then you also have like your own story you're trying to tell. It just kind of, it doesn't, that was not me spanking my own ass. That was me clapping my hands together as if, it, you know, a mild fender bender-esque car crash. You know, I don't think they work that well together. Sometimes the call turns out a lot worse than anyone could have guessed. When this happens, officers might request reinforcements. If you have no one available to send and you don't want people putting their lives on the line, you might need to call them back to the station, but you'll be hanging citizens out to dry. We're the police. Our job is to serve and protect. Samedy and Grant. Wait, can I send the SWAT team out there? No. Samedy and Grant, you guys are on. Go for it. So they've requested backup. It's the first time I've had that happen. Psychological test, City Hall. Jack, you must have seen the newspaper stories about Thomas Blaine, the retired cop who went schizophrenic and shot a pregnant woman. To ensure this tragedy doesn't repeat itself, we decided to conduct psychological testing for cops over 50 years of age. That includes you, Jack. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Eleonora Waterbury is waiting for you in her office. Don't be late. Well, I mean, it's already like 1 in the morning, but sure, I guess I'm salaried, so you pretty much got me by the balls. I just want one opportunity to say, give me your badge and your gun. Let's see how this mafia thing shakes out. This is the most ambitious, police request I've had ever. Theft report. Oh, offender caught. Officers unharmed. Look at that prestige. Stovall, you know, you're next in line for police chief as far as I'm concerned, and disappointed. From Christopher Sand. Jack, we don't know why you did it, but we hope you had a good reason. Don't forget who your friends are. We don't want any more trouble. So I know there are, we can end the day now. I'm just going to let it go, though, for a second, because it gives me a chance to talk. There are failure conditions in the game. You can be killed by the mafia. I believe City Hall can oust you. The public can turn on you. But for right now, it's been relatively easy to manage the equilibrium, but I assume that, again, they kind of twist the vice on you there as the game goes on. If the game was just this, and then like once a week you got a cutscene, I think I would enjoy it a lot more. And it's not that I don't enjoy it, it's just that I find myself being like, it's slower than it has any right to be. Like, let me get to the fun stuff mechanically. I'm not arguing that all games just have to be fun, but I also don't think that the story is as engaging as maybe they think it is. This is something where your mileage may vary. With all this being said, I do think that This Is the Police deserves a lot of credit for being ambitious. This is a game that, you know, was not just, let's make a police sandbox game. They took it one level higher and they were like, I want to tell a story about corruption, and it does deal with a lot of issues that, you know, are steeped in history but also contemporary as well, like racism and corruption, police brutality, even gender politics and stuff like that. And I haven't encountered too much of it, but at the same time, I think it is at least laudable that they attempt to tell a serious story here, even if it gets weirdly dissonant in terms of its tone sometimes, where, like, sometimes the mayor will be like, hey, can you fire all of the black police officers? And you're like, whoa, dude, that's like a really serious ask. The game has, like, some justification for it, and you can refuse to do it. Obviously, I have. And then later you're like, well, can I smoke a cigarette with these high school kids who just stole some sneakers? Or, you know, throw a sex doll at somebody who's trying to rob a sex shop at knife point? Like, it's this weird, like, 10 out of 10 serious, whoa, down to, like, 1 out of 10 zaniness that is just unusual to me. It doesn't totally poison the whole experience. The thing that really impacts my enjoyment and hampers my enjoyment the most is just constantly being like, I like this police work gameplay and this management, almost like deck builders style of things with like light RPG elements leveling up our officers. It's just enough light strategy for me to be okay with it and enjoy it actually more than I would expect. And it's kind of like, you know, it's like a casual puzzle game or something like that, in the sense that you can play it and be like, I'm average intelligence and I'm feeling good about it. You know, it's like solving the second level of Tetris or something like that, or a basic Sudoku puzzle. You're like, I'm at least making myself feel that I'm relatively competent at this. But then the cutscenes just kind of drag, man. Like, every single day to get one. City Treasury doles out $90,000 for Mayor's birthday. Mysterious Robespierre announces political ambitions. 6 new restaurants to appear in city by year's end. 6 restaurants? What is this, New York? And we'll see. I mean, I'll show you one more cutscene. I think it's representative because The cutscenes really are the bulk of the game. Oh, we're actually not going to get one this time. Have mercy and thank you so much. Mr. Boy, this is a very simple test. I'll show you a card with an abstract image. You just look at them and tell me what you see. I do think that this is a man taking a handful of tablets in the barn. That is I'm not even looking at the options down here. Looks like a man's foot entering somewhere. A man going back to his house. Yep. Alright, this one is like someone's putting ornaments on a Christmas tree. Yeah, a woman decorating a Christmas tree. This is the woman decorating a smaller Christmas tree. A man giving a woman a Christmas ornament. A baby with spider legs. No thank you. The woman is now taking the ornament off the tree and giving it to one of the creatures from Journey. The woman dropping the Christmas ornament. The ornament is breaking. Well, this is actually kind of novel. I like it. It's telling us a story. The man yelling at the woman. A chess rook. A man with the head of a rhinoceros. I mean, I don't really see a man yelling at a woman. I see a spider with a lightning bolt in the middle. I'm going to say this is a man with the head of a rhinoceros. And then she's kicking him in the head or something. The woman slapping the man. And then he tore her lung out of her body. The man's pushing the woman. An octopus playing the piano. The woman falling over the Christmas tree. All right, I get it. Thank you for your time. I'll inform you about the test results in the coming days. Well, that day was actually faster. No black employees at City Hall. Mayor says accident. I don't know, man. I've spoken to the mayor a couple of times here, and I think that he might not be the most tolerant man in the world here. Anyway, the last few months I've been taking antidepressants 3 times a day, but today I ran out of my prescription. The pharmacy said that they're getting more in tomorrow, but I'm afraid without the pills I'm not going to be much good. My mind keeps digging up all kinds of disturbing thoughts. Can I go home? Yes. Some friends of mine asked me to help out at their animal shelter. They're badly short-staffed. Can I have the day off? I mean, you know, if you actually are off your antidepressant meds, I don't want you working in our office, you know, not just for your own mental well-being, but for the safety of other people. But you're a police officer, your friends ask you to work at the animal shelter. No, you know, they can get other volunteers. We're doing important business here. Once a week, you can also give out stripes, which are basically like, you know, a promotion. Stovall gets the stripes, dude. You can give it to buff another unit up, but I'm giving it to Stovall because he deserves it. Anyway, this is the police. It was a relatively representative half hour. I think it gets a little heavy-handed in its narrative, and it drags a little bit with the cutscenes, especially in the early game. Like, you watch like a 5-minute cutscene to set the story. That puts you to the main menu. You click New Game, and then there's another like 5-minute opening cutscene to set the stage that's different from the first one. And at some point, you're like, just get to the game. But the actual strategy and police management stuff, I think is okay. And I do think, and I've read the Steam reviews, a lot of people are like really, really pleased with this game. I think for whatever reason, the story and the way it's being told is not hitting me the same way it hits other people. But if you like what you see here, certainly a lot of people seem to be huge fans of this, and they seem to think that it's even affecting, if that makes sense, like on an emotional level, or at least engaging on an intellectual level. But for now, I'm kind of like mild on it. I really appreciate the presentation elements. I think there's a lot of polish that's gone into that. I like the police level, the police layer, like the management stuff. Not a huge fan of the narrative. Everything's done competently and the voice work is fine, but it chews up a little bit too much scenery for me. But certainly for $15 US, this is not like a huge ask from a price standpoint for a game that's this ambitious. Does it succeed in those ambitions? Your mileage may vary. For me, not as much as I would have liked, but you may disagree. And if you do, and you want to check out the game for yourself on Steam, there will be a link in the video description below. For now, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the episode, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.